we'll find out. So we can, learn a few things about our mind so we can be of benefit to ourselves and others. So I think I'd like to ask me to ask some questions. I think I'd like to have questions. Let's start with a question, everybody. So come on, start with a question. I'm sure Eileen's got me a question. I can guarantee Eileen has me a question. What is it, Eileen? Tell us. We'll start with a question, everybody.
Well, here's my question. I guess it's personal about practice. If you find yourself unable, for whatever reason, if you could only sit 5 minutes, but you can do some mantra and you're watching your mind and you're doing some studying. I mean, the thing is, I feel like I'm just not I have days where I can sit for 20 minutes and other days when I cannot.
Well, first of all, you got to ask the question, why, what do you mean by practice, and why have you got some assumption that I mean, the first question is, if you say that, that assumes you have a commitment. If you don't have a commitment, then you don't have to do anything. So typically what happens when you take refuge, Eileen, and the person takes refuge, and then, you sort of commit to a few things. So one of your commitments when you take refuge is to make offerings. One of your commitments is to take refuge every morning and every night. So it makes sense, and it's helpful to have like an altar, and then it makes sense to have a bit of a discipline, so then you have a commitment to do something in the morning and something at night. But if you haven't got a commitment, then what's the question mean? What do you really mean? What's behind that question?
Well, I guess I suppose yes, I mean, certain things I do every day, absolutely. But so maybe the commitment is not strong enough right now. Maybe that's the problem.
No, what I'm saying is, do you have you made an agreement with one of your teachers when you did a ceremony that you would do certain things every day? If you did, then you need to do it. If you don't have a commitment, it's up to you. So it's a question of what you really mean by your question.
Well, that's the answer.
What's behind your question, Eileen?
I suppose what's behind my question is what happens when your commitment falters.
So you mean if you have a commitment to do something every day and you break your commitment?
That's correct. That's right. Okay. That's really what.
So that means you mean you've got commitments to do certain things every day. You've taken empowerments, initiations, vows. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Well, in other words, I did take refuge, and there's certain things I do every day, absolutely. But I just feel that I think what you're bringing to my attention is that my commitment wavers too much. It's minimal as opposed to very strong. But that's something I have to work on.
Still, I've got to persevere, and I'm still, this word commitment has a very particular meaning. I don't just mean it in a generic sense. I mean, if you've taken refuge, you've agreed to do a half a dozen things. If you've taken refuge, for example, you have agreed to take refuge morning and night. That's a commitment. You have agreed to make offerings on your altar every day, which implies an altar. You have agreed to offer your first mouthful of food and drink to the 3 jewels. So those are 3 things you are committed to do. You've committed to have respect for the things that represent Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. That's what I'm trying to get by a commitment. It's a very precise, like you've got a contract. So if you have a contract, you need to know what the terms are and what you've agreed to do. That's what I am talking about commitment. So now with that in mind, then of course, if you've taken bodhisattva vows, you have a prayer that renews the vows, you should commit to that. Then if you've taken a tantric empowerment, that's even more serious, and you've got a certain commitment to do certain practices. So within that framework, what is your question?
You just answered it.
So if the answer is you are breaking your commitment,
right,
you better check on that, because that means, I mean, if you think about it, it's not a moralistic issue. If you've taken refuge, if you've taken bodhisattva vows, even if you have a teacher who's said to you, I want you to do this and that, and you've agreed to it, then it kind of makes sense. If you've got a doctor who says, take this medicine every day, and then you say, now you're telling me, well, I don't really take the medicine every day, what's the problem? You're going to lose your connection with your doctor. Why would your doctor keep telling you to do this and do that if you don't do it? So it's a very organic, natural thing that what will happen is you'll loosen the connection with the Dharma, you'll loosen the connection with your teachers, and you won't be the beneficiary. That's the answer. So it's a practical issue, not a moralistic one. So if you are committed to the Dharma, which obviously you are the beneficiary of having a regular discipline practice. So it's to our advantage to have a discipline practice.
Yes.
That's the answer. Do you understand?
Yes, I do. I do.
Good, good, good.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else, any questions? Okay. So what do you want to talk about? What do you have to suggest then something? I'll talk about something. Suggest I talk about something. Make some suggestions. What would you like me to talk about? People. What would you like me to talk about? What would you like me to talk about?
Can I ask you something?
Yes.
Venerable Robina?
Yes, Paula.
How can we help others with a bit of wisdom and method? How can we do that? Sometimes
What do you mean by the
I
question?
always enjoy helping people.
Darling, what do you mean by the question, Paula? What do you mean by the question?
I always enjoy helping people, but sometimes I make mistakes because I don't have the wisdom and method, the tools, the right tools to help.
That's reasonable then. So what's the question?
So I don't know whether not to help at all.
Well, give an example. Your question is very, very broad, Paula. Give me a much more specific question, please.
For example, a friend of mine is not feeling well, has a crisis, and I try to help by shaking her, by saying, for example, I think you really don't want to change. And she was offended by that and ran away. So my intention was to help her to do something about her crisis, to handle it instead of running away from it. But I got the opposite reaction. I got the reaction, a bad reaction.
Obviously, then you obviously, so then if you analyze it, it sounds to me that you were angry with her.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Why did you have to shout at her like that? That's called anger.
No, I didn't shout at her.
When you say those words, that's kind of like critical, very negative. Why did you assume she didn't want to change? Why did you assume that?
I just wanted to provoke a reaction.
But why did you want? That's not just obviously it didn't work. So then you have to learn from your experience. That's pretty clear, isn't it? I mean, you said it didn't work. You hurt her.
Because I always keep saying, "Oh, don't worry, don't worry." When she has a crisis, she's not feeling well. I say, "Don't worry, it will pass. It will pass. Don't worry, something good will happen." And this time, I decided to do the opposite, to say the opposite.
Why do you think it's your job to give her an answer anyway? Why don't you just listen to her? Why we always, you see, what you've got to look at is your mind. I would suggest this is what you have to look at. When people tell us their problems, you see, our attachment from your side, we all have attachment, and attachment doesn't like problems. So basically, your attachment doesn't like her problem. So then and so then you always assume it's your job to make her problem go away. But it's not your job. Sometimes your job is simply to be listening and be sympathetic and leave her alone, let her make her own decisions. But but we always this is the mistake we mostly make. I mean, if you don't want her to keep talking about her problems all the time, then you don't talk to her. Otherwise, you just shut up and let her tell you your problems and let her be done with it and show sympathy and say goodbye. But we always, our own attachment always wants to make things better, always wants to make the problem go away. So in this context, you know, your attachment doesn't want her problem. So then you assume it's your job to solve it. Well, it's not your job. So learn that. You see my point?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you don't have the wisdom to know what to say, then just be quiet. I mean, that's all. That's the biggest one for all of us. We never think that. When someone comes with a problem, we automatically think it's our job to fix it. But it's really very arrogant of us. It's not our job. And we have to then understand what it is in our mind that is the problem, that is attachment. And that's very surprising to us because we don't even know we have such a thing. And when we understand attachment is this neediness in us for things to be nice. And if a person comes along with a problem, that's exactly what attachment doesn't want. Attachment would much rather have it that she comes along and says some happy words. Do you understand my point? So when your attachment doesn't get what it wants, you show a distress and aversion and want to make the problem go away. We never think of it this way, but it's very important to see. It's our problem. We don't have to solve everybody's problem. If you have the wisdom to do so, kindly do so. But we mostly don't. But we have to see why it is we always stick our nose in. Everybody does it. We think we're being helpful. In fact, we're not even. We should mind our own business, you know. It's very important. And let people have their problems and be done with it. And if you can help, fantastic. So that means we have to look at our attachments. And it's very, very hard to see that because we don't even know we have it. I mean, we think attachment is like liking chocolate cakes or something. But attachment is there all the time. A hunger, a neediness that everything be lovely. It's very subtle. And it's really very destructive. And then aversion arises. So basically, when she told you your problem, because you've been hearing it many times before, your aversion arose, which indeed is anger. It is anger. You don't think it is, but it is anger. Aversion is anger. It's very simple. It's a mild anger because you're sick of her complaining. So you wanted to wake her up. So yes, in fact, you were angry with her. Being very blunt. Do you understand me, Paula? If you do the analysis like that, it's definitely your aversion arose and you wanted to push her into action. And instead you hurt her, you know. Okay, so she has to learn. But that's what you have to learn about your mind. Everyone is the same, darling, I tell you. It's very hard to see our attachment. Yeah. So what else, people? What else? What else, people? Anything else? Ask me some questions, come on.
I'll ask. Hello, Venerable.
Okay, good, darling.
This is Tara.
Yes,
I
yes.
thought I'd go bring up what I'd like to work on as countering is laziness at home that I've had. I'll mention I've mentioned this to you. I've had time off since June 30th. I have no problem with my commitments. I have Buddhist studies that I do regularly. I volunteer. But now it seems like I have all this extra time that I was really excited about. And like setting an additional meditation program that I wanted to do. It's been such a hit and miss. And I see this laziness from, I mean, my youth and actually throughout time where I have activities I do and I do them like I know I need to do them. But then I get these lazy periods where I'm happy not doing anything. So I think it's just the question of countering this. I know I've in the teachings it's saying, you know, enthusiasm isn't an antidote for, you know, laziness, but laziness to enthusiasm seems difficult to.
Oh, darling, okay, okay. First of all, let's look at laziness. It's a really good point. It's a really good point. In the context of developing enthusiasms. First of all, laziness, I mean, we've got to understand what it is, the evolution of it. It's really important. So it says unpack it. So of course, as we're talking, as you're mentioning, enthusiasm. This is the fourth of the six perfections of the Bodhisattva. And it's a really, I mean, at the level they teach it there in the six perfections, we're talking about a really intense level, you know, and enthusiasm is the end result. And it's the most important of those first four. Without this one, you won't be succeeding at anything. So very first point is we're trying to cultivate what they call enthusiasm or enthusiastic perseverance, or as they say, we want to make joyful effort. So the first point is to know what that means. And that is, as all the lamas say, excuse me, enthusiasm, you won't get it until you know the benefits. So you have to know the benefits of what it is you want to accomplish. So of course we're talking our Buddhahood here. It could be more specifically our particular practice. It could be more specifically one set of studies. It could be a very specific thing. But in general, it seems to me, you're trying to make the use of your time because you've got time off, and you're trying to fill in the day with all your Dharma activities, you know, which is wonderful. It's very inspiring to hear that. So first of all, you've got to know the benefits of doing this thing. Then you've got to look at what it is mentally that is the obstacle. So the name of the problem, the opposite of enthusiasm, is laziness, and it sounds kind of rather general, but let's be precise about it. And general in the teachings, I mentioned 2 kinds, but I think it's better to put 3. The very first, laziness, is the most primordial automatic response to anything. And I think they're talking Dharma particularly here, but if we look at our lives in general, you know, anything you think you have to do, and a job you have to do, the very first instinct we have is, I can't be bothered, isn't it? Very first, the most obvious level. So then we have to analyze what, it's quite technical, it's quite precise. What is it you can't be bothered doing is actually the thing that you're not good at. The thing that you have to make effort to do is the one that doesn't come naturally. So that means you have to push against something. And the something you're pushing against is this attachment. And in this case, it's attachment to comfort, not attachment to sex or food or drugs. It's attachment, this very kind of gross feeling of our comfort zone. Because analyze anything you have to make effort to do, mentally or physically, you have to push yourself past the threshold, isn't it? So, and you're not, and because attachment wants to be comfortable. Attachment wants to be comfortable. So you're comfortable with 1 hour of push-ups. There's no effort. But once you get to 1 minute past 1 hour, you've got to past your threshold. And that's where the can't be bothered comes in. So most of us are bone lazy. We're very attached to comfort. We're very attached to our pleasant feeling and our bed and our comfort and our meals and our routines. And especially if we have a good life, you know, if we're living on the streets, there's not much comfort at all. We've all got our comfort, and we really are very attached to staying in that. And anything you have to make effort to do, it pushes you outside of your comfort zone. It's a very good way to put it. So, I mean, it's really obvious. So the most obvious level of laziness is I can't be bothered, because you've got to push. But that's why, if you know the benefit of that thing you want to do, that has to inspire us to want to push. If you don't know the benefit, I mean, if you just do it because you want to, I'm not saying anything about you, you have to look. You know, we can sometimes fill our thinking by doing a lot of activities, including 14 different Dharma activities. We can maybe think that's being not lazy, but it doesn't. You've got to also look at that. Maybe it's not necessarily beneficial to do yet another meditation and fill up all your hours in your day. That is not necessarily the right thing for you. That's another discussion. You've got to look at that. But if it is something you know you need to do and it's part of your practice, but then look at that laziness. And then, of course, and then when we know that if you go past that little bit of comfort zone and you do it, then you stretch yourself 1 more push-up, you know, and so now you can do 2 push-ups. So next time you can do 3 push-ups. So it's an organic process. And when you understand it is an organic process, you'll be happy to push a little bit. And then you go the next day, it'll be a bit more. Next day, a bit more. It's very incremental. Then you can go beyond your comfort zone every day, and your comfort zone will keep moving forward, which is exactly what progress means. Now, the second kind of laziness sounds like a virtue. And but it's really very wicked and very tricky. So that the first of all can't be bothered arises that you think of your practice to do or the job to be done. So first it's can't be bothered, but the next second you then say, oh, I'm too busy, I'll do it later. That's a really chronic disease that we all have. And the problem with that is we do decide we're going to do it, but then we can't be bothered, but in a sense, we add another layer of lies to ourselves and say, I'm too busy, I'll do it later. And it feels like a virtue. It feels like, phew, I got off the hook, and that is not necessarily the one you're talking about, but that's one of the worst ones we all do in our lives, and so we build up all this we carry around all these burdens on our shoulder, and that's the negative side of it. We then get guilty and we feel so burdened, and all these jobs we feel we should do but we don't do. And then when we do, and the fact of the matter is we all know that when you do that job, it probably takes you 20 minutes and the relief is incredible, so that's a very particular kind of laziness, putting it off. I'm too busy, because actually later never comes. It just becomes a burden and it becomes very stressful. And then we have carry this guilt around. And all the lamas say, one of the worst ways to die actually is all the undone responsibilities and jobs, especially our practice, that we put off doing. We have this having this awful regret of the wasted life. So that putting things off is quite heavy. The obvious gross one is can't be bothered. This is the next level. And of course, the third one, and you're not saying this one, but the third one is especially when it comes, let's say we think about, I can think about Lama Zopa, for example, and he's my teacher. He's an example. He's showing me how I want to become. So there he is, for example, since he's a little boy from his own past practice, he never cared about sleep. So clearly he's got some kind of phenomenal enthusiasm. That really is the proof that he has extraordinary enthusiasm, and he doesn't have the lazy of can't be bothered. Since a little boy, he had no interest in sleep. So that's from past life practice. So all this life is really evident, that he's shown the aspect of always having enthusiasm, which you can't just get overnight. So of course, there he is, my teacher. My first impulse when I see that naturally is, oh my God, I can't be like that. That's not possible. And that's very natural. Even if you hear of somebody who's a friend of yours who's just done a 3-year retreat, you go, oh, I couldn't do that. We see the thing and it looks too difficult. The 5-year course, studying Prajnaparamita, training yourself in memorizing that text. The first thing when we see a certain event, a certain job, and it really does at this moment seem insurmountable, we say, oh, I can't do that. I can't achieve that. And again, it's a laziness, because it makes us feel as if almost it's like it's being humble, or we think, oh no, so we don't even bother trying. So they're the 3 levels of laziness that are the reason we don't accomplish our goals. So I think when we understand that it's all incremental, to just to slowly have a really clear-eyed view of our practice, our studies, our regime, whatever it might be, and then grow it slowly. It's got to grow. I mean, if you go to the gym every day, but you never really do much progress, because the moment you start sweating, you stop and go home, then you can pretend you were at the gym, but there's no progress. Your muscles won't change. So you've got to see some progress. We've got to move. Okay, my practice, I do this. And if we just puddle along, and most of us, I mean, I can see with my practice, I'm bone lazy, and if you just you muddle along, you do it, and you kind of sigh with relief and close the book and you get back to being lazy again, then it's better than nothing. It's kind of treading water, but we've got to see progress, So we've got to be very incremental, very steady, very humble, and very disciplined. So for you, I think, because you like to do 27 different things, maybe that's not necessarily not being lazy. Maybe you're just filling your day with 27 different jobs thinking you're not being lazy. Maybe you've got to really check up and look at really freshly, what is it, Tara, you should be doing? What's the most effective use of your time, Not be too idealistic. That's my own private piece of extra information for you. Do you understand?
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Helped a lot. Thank you.
Good, darling. Good. So what else, people?
So, Venerable, I have a follow-up question about laziness. So
Yeah,
we're trying to do a meditation, calm abiding, and I find that I drift off so much, and it's really hard to stay focused. Is that also laziness? And
So
how
you
does
mean
one
doing the
counter
practice
that?
So say the question again.
So when I'm meditating and trying to do a calm abiding meditation, I find my mind keeps drifting off. It's very hard to stay focused.
That's right.
And I'm wondering, is that also laziness?
I think it's a multitude of things, Sheila. Yeah, I mean, if it's, you see, I mean, unless you, I think to get concentration, if you look in the texts, all the prerequisites that you have to first have before you're even qualified to even try, probably you haven't even looked at that. I mean, you're not in no way going to succeed in concentration meditation, even if you think of it as a little tiny bit of progress every day. There's no way you're going to succeed if you haven't really done some of those earlier preliminary practices. You just if you just do it occasionally, I mean, are you talking about a very disciplined practice every day for 5 minutes or 7 minutes, and you do it every day, and are you basically saying that you haven't made any progress whatsoever, or is you not really trying, are you not really disciplined in, I mean, in other words, if you go to the gym for 1 month or 2 months and you come home and you haven't changed slightly in any shape or form, then there's something missing in your practice. You're not doing something properly. So what are you really saying? If you're asking me, what are you really
Well,
saying?
I do a daily practice, and I guess I'm feeling frustrated because I don't feel like I'm making progress.
Okay, so the progress that you think you should be making is that you can stay concentrated longer. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
And you really know definitively that you're not. You've tested it. You know that
That's what it seems like to me. Yeah.
I understand.
I mean, I'm okay sitting on the cushion. That's not a problem. I do that every day, but I just don't feel like I'm making progress. I feel like I'm there 2 minutes and I'm, making the shopping list, or I'm thinking about dinner, or, whatever it is. And it's very hard to come back. I mean, I just keep.
Well, it's completely natural that when you attempt to focus on the object, let's say the object is your breath, I don't know, and it doesn't matter. Let's say you're training your mind to pay attention to the breath, that's the object. And then you say, distractions come. What do you do about that distraction? Do you follow the instructions and go back to the breath? Or do you just keep following the distraction?
Well, I find it hard to even notice. I mean, I realize I've kind of gone way off on, into left field before I even noticed that. And then I try to come back. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So then I hear you. I totally hear you. We're all the same because our lives are so busy. So then then I think it's really helpful to know which parts of your mind. I think it's important my feeling is it's important to be a bit more analytical and understand which parts of your mind do which job. So, if you study the mind, you know that you've got these different parts of the mind that all play their role. There's a whole bunch of it's not just Sheila watching her breath, but for example, the very first one is the part of your mind that's watching the breath. You can say that's the job of attention. And then the job of mindfulness is right there sitting next to the attention, and it's kind of watching the attention like a hawk. And the moment attention wanders off the breath, mindfulness has to bring it back. And that's the main one. And that's just one piece. That's the main job of mindfulness. Is a part of your mind that catches you being distracted and brings your attention back to the breath. So you've got to be very precise. And of course, catching it, mindfulness's job is to catch the distraction. The job of mindfulness is to help you train yourself not to forget what you're doing. So that's the piece that's missing. The mindfulness is the piece that's missing. I mean, thinking even so, then you just have to make strong determination. You've got to have determination to catch it. And if you don't make that determination, it's not going to happen. But I mean, it's not that easy. So my feeling is, for most of us who aren't great meditators, there surely has to be the advantage to you, if you're trying to watch your breath every day, as well as doing your other practices, that you at least surely you have made some progress in seeing your delusions. Would you be agreeing with that you've seen you've got attachment, you see how it works, you see your aversion, you see your jealousy? Would you agree with that? You've seen your mind a bit more clearly? And can you see that when you are trying to concentrate, you're hearing all the chatting in the background, aren't you? So if you can even see that as progress, if you never do any meditating, if you've never thought of the concept of seeing your mind, which is the world, then you could say nothing's changing. But even if you can't concentrate, even if you can see your mind a bit more clearly as a result of making the effort to concentrate, then I would say there is progress. It mightn't be concentration, But for me, the big advantage for most of us, it's the best way to see what's going on in your head, because your head's always working. Your mind's chatting away like crazy. And at least for that few minutes you're sitting on your cushion, you mightn't be concentrating, but you're noticing your crazy delusions. You're noticing you've got distraction. You notice attachment. You notice anger. And that has to be progress. So for me, I think be content with that. Because to really be so qualified to get concentration, Sheila, it's pretty intense. You need pretty incredible discipline and a lot of purification. I mean, Venerable Rene, when I interviewed him back in 95 about his first big long retreat, 2.5 years, he said there was no way, okay, we're not talking you going off for 12 hours a day for 2 years, but to really get to the point where you're ready to seriously work on getting single point of concentration, he said there was no way in the world he would have been able to do that had he not been a monk, living in vows, doing purification, studying, and even teaching. That was the preparation that enabled him to get to the mountains to then start the serious job of actually getting concentration. So it's not an easy thing. It's a tremendously difficult thing and needs tremendous discipline. But see some advantages. You're seeing your mind. See some advantage, Sheila. Don't think it's completely hopeless. That's my point, or my suggestion. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you sort of more, I would say, determination than worrying about laziness.
Yes, determination. I mean, it's like the gym. I mean, the gym is a really good example because it's so evident, the result. You could go to the gym for 10 years and never change one muscle because you're not going past a certain threshold, you know? And so we can go through the motions of doing our meditation, but you've got to maybe decide on 5 minutes every day, 7 minutes every day, and really clock your progress. Otherwise, it's, oh, I'm hopeless, I'm no good, I get distracted, I'll think about the breakfast. And I mean, unless you really do it a bit more thoroughly, a bit more sort of work at, a bit more technically, a bit more determinedly. I don't know, but I mean, I don't necessarily think at the beginning, I mean, we're doing many other practices. You're practicing virtue by working for the center. You're purifying your mind tremendously. I mean, that's the only thing. We want some concentration, but if you want to, another point I'm making, generally speaking, if you want to put it in the most fundamental way, what are we trying to do as a Buddhist? Is we're not even to meditate. We're not even trying to study. We're not even trying to live in our vows. That's not the main answer. The bottom line of being a Buddhist is 1, identify your delusions and lessen them. And 2, identify your virtues and grow them. That actually is the criterion, the fundamental criterion of any action that is a Buddhist action. So if you are doing that in your daily life, which you would be, if you're working for a Dharma center, I mean, Lama Zopa says these things, and I don't think we trust them, that the amount of virtue you create by serving a Dharma center is like inconceivable. If you understood it, if you could quantify karma, it would totally blow your mind, you know. It would be, Lama Zopa says, it's equivalent 1 day of working in a Dharma center in terms of purification and creating merit. Another way to say is to purify delusions and to grow your virtue, which is called creating merit. He says 1 day of working in a Dharma center because of what a Dharma center does is equivalent in terms of purification and merit to literally doing years of retreat. So if we hear that, then we should be completely totally in tears of utter bliss. But you understand, but we don't see that. It's not evident to us. So if we have to really be sensible and know what our strengths are. I mean, some people like Venerable Rene was one of those people who, as soon as he heard the Dharma, he knew that was his path. And he's been this professional meditator for 50 years, doing everything else as well, but that's been his focus. Very few people choose that path because we've all got different approaches. So there's nothing wrong with trying to do your concentration, but but the fact that you haven't got good concentration is not the sign of your success or failure. Everybody's got a different path. And the fact that you work for a Dharma center, for me, that's inconceivable virtue. And we've got to really know that is a very profound practice. But we've got to have confidence in that, Sheila. Meanwhile, keep trying.
Thank you.
Right. Because we've all got different styles, different ways, different strengths, you know. mean, for me, I don't even try. I don't even pretend to get concentration. I don't even make an effort. I've never have in my 47 years of being a Buddhist. I have not had the slightest interest in even pretending to concentrate. And that doesn't mean when I do my practices, I don't try to concentrate, but I don't ever see it as a specific goal. My feeling is next life, I might be ready for it. I've got to create more merit first. I'm trying not to exaggerate, but different people have different, I always prefer to, I always just figured I've got to do work, Sure, I've got to concentrate. But there's other ways of getting concentration too. Training yourself to be disciplined and training yourself to do your practice. I mean, like talking like to Eileen, being disciplined in our practice. That can help us, Maybe do a few maybe if you do a few prostrations, that'll purify the karma, and suddenly one day you'll find a session is better. In other words, you don't keep bashing away at the concentrating, but creating merit doing another practice can make it easier when you sit down on your cushion again, because there's different ways. Sort of like, that example I always give, you go to Roger Federer, please show me how to do a backhand, and he says you're not ready. He says go away and do jogging for 1 hour. You don't see what jogging has got to do with a backhand, but somehow because it strengthens your body and primes you, next time you pick up the racket, you can do the backhand. So sometimes it's like that as well. Practice other things to prime your mind. Sit on your cushion and you'll discover that you can concentrate, but don't bash. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's an important approach as well. Do you see what I'm saying, Sheila?
Yeah.
So do some
Thank you.
Bodhisattva mantra, purify the obstacles, That's the kind of thing. Just do different things that all chip away. They all work together, the different techniques, What else, people? We've only got another 15 minutes. I haven't got long today. As soon as I got to Italy, I got sick. I've been sick for 3 weeks. I'm only just getting better. I got like flu, coughing, nose. I don't think it was COVID. Some kind of flu. Everybody's getting flu here in Italy. So I'm only just getting better now. I'm okay though. Okay, people, what else, darlings? Come on. Questions? Questions? Anybody? No? Nothing? Yes, Eileen, what is it, darling? Yes,
Since we're talking about all of this, everyone has different inclinations. I'm much better at studying than doing anything else. So here's my question, is that also a path? In other words, like I don't have a strong inclination for meditation, let's say, but I have a very strong inclination to picking up a book, So I guess
I suppose what we've got to do here, Eileen, because we use these very casually, really think about the meaning of meditation, and I'll tell you the word in Tibetan. The verb to meditate in Tibetan is to familiarize.
Yes.
So what do you think it means?
Well, to see your mind, to understand what's going on. Oh, it doesn't.
No, listen to the verb, to familiarize. What does it? Finish the sentence. What do you think it means?
To familiarize who you are, to familiarize what's going on. No.
No. It means to learn something. I mean, it's a quaint way to put to learn. So when you learn something, you're using your mind, right? So whether you're reading a book, you're reading a book and you're reading the Dharma and you're learning it, you're familiarizing your mind with karma, you're familiarizing your mind with music, you're familiarizing your mind. So there's different levels of familiarization. Would you not agree? The very first level is to listen. The next level is to then think about it and make it coherent. And the third level is, this is where they talk about meditation, is where it becomes your experience.
Yes.
So the proper meditation we're talking about here isn't pretending just by sitting on your bottom. That's not meditation. Meditation is only really serious when you've got single-pointed concentration. Then the knowledge you've listened to, thought about, can actually be profoundly incorporated into your mind because you have concentration. Then it becomes a realization. So we just have to do kind of
Venerable.
Prefer to study, read about, but you still think about it, right? Don't you? You think it through. Well, then you are familiarizing your mind with it. Be content with that. So on the one hand, we tend to think meditation, like Sheila didn't say this, and she's not saying it, but I'm giving an example. She talked about meditating, meaning concentration, meditation, as if that's meditation. She doesn't say it, but the world often thinks that means meditation. But that, no, technically speaking, concentration is not the meaning of meditation at all. It's a technique that makes your mind capable of actually familiarizing yourself with karma, impermanence, the emptiness, and bodhicitta, the substance of the teachings. So concentration is just, it's not technically meditation. It's training the mind to become capable when you then take the topic and you turn it into insight, which is the meaning of vipassana. So technically, concentration is not even a virtue. It's not a positive state of mind. It's not a negative state of mind. It's in the third category of the ones that are called, I call the mechanics of the mind, neutral. Concentration itself, mindfulness itself, they are not virtuous states of mind. This is why if we understand the mind in Buddhism, it's so important. But because we're so addicted to thinking you're sitting on a cushion with your eyes closed, oh, I'm meditating. No, you're not. You're not. So there are two kinds of meditation. They call them both meditation. The first one, like I said, technically isn't actually. It's not a virtue. It's not a virtue. So the motivation that makes it virtuous. You need to have a positive motivation for doing it. Like Lama Zopa says, thieves need mindfulness. A good sniper needs very good concentration. I mean, this is not being sarcastic now. So we have to understand the Buddhist model of the mind. The first lot are the negative, neurotic, deluded states of mind. The second lot are the virtuous, positive, beneficial states of mind. And the third lot are what I like to refer to as the mechanical parts of our mind. Concentration, intention, attention, mindfulness, alertness, they are discrimination. They are not virtues and they are not non-virtues, but they're totally necessary states of mind. So it's the motivation that drives those that then makes them virtuous. So concentration meditation, which is Hindu technique, these genius Indians invented, utterly brilliant, enables the mind to become very subtle and very focused. That's the fact is it brings incredible results itself, and you can get very captivated by those results. But that's not the point. That is the bonus. The reason, the only reason to have concentration is so we can now go to the second mode and take the different teachings, impermanence, karma, bodhicitta, emptiness, whatever the topic is, and you use that as the topic that you now, with your concentrated mind, use analysis to think through in order to trigger the insight into the experience of that topic. So the second mode of meditation is where you actually do the work of familiarizing your mind with impermanence, karma, bodhicitta, emptiness, or whatever the topic might be. It's so important to understand that process. So the only reason to have concentration is so we can familiarize our minds with the various points of the Dharma that Buddha has found to be reality. That's it. Concentration on its own. I mean, the Hindus, they, with the development of this Shine, they already stopped the first level of suffering. They could see the benefit of having disciplined behavior. So they stopped the first kind of suffering by stopping harming. They understood morality. They stopped the second kind of suffering, the suffering of change, by giving up attachment. Not totally, but they didn't stop the third kind, which is all pervasive suffering. They went into these subtlest states of the most subtle states of concentration, thinking that that was liberation. But they're still in samsara. That's where Buddha diverged in his own direction, and he realized that we hadn't used this subtle state of mind to realize emptiness. That's where Buddhism began. You know, Buddha diverged into that in his own direction in relation to how to cut the root of all of the suffering. So we have to get concentration. So we can familiarize our mind, get insight into impermanence, insight into karma, insight into all the points of the path, finally insight into emptiness. And then combine that with bodhicitta and we become a Buddha. Are we communicating?
Yes, thank you.
I mean, Lama Yeshe is wonderful, as you know, in Mahamudra, his book. He's always trying to encourage us Westerners to see we've got this marvelous potential, you know. And so he shows all the incredible qualities, or just some of the qualities that you would accomplish just getting single point of concentration. I mean, it's totally mind-blowing. It's so inspiring to read it. As he says, you know, we'd be so inspired, we'd never want to waste our lives if we could just even see the benefit of just having concentration, which of course is not the final point, because he's trying to show us that our minds have got this incredible potential. But I mean, to get to the level of having, you need years and years of much practice, like Venerable Renee said, and then many, many years in the mountains, because there's no way in the planet, that's why Sheila, there's no way in the universe having an ordinary life with an ordinary mind, ordinary person, we can accomplish single point of concentration just sitting at home, you know. I mean, it's not possible. It's just not possible. So to even think, I mean, some progress, yeah, but it's got to be much more discipline than you're doing. It's got to be several hours a day. It's going to be several sessions a day. And then you would really track your progress. You would do it if you made it more disciplined, like going to the gym and noticing you're losing the weight each time. But just going to the gym to be casual, like many people do. I mean, it's such a good analogy. Nothing really changes in your body. You just feel good. Feel nice. You go, you get a bit fit. You know, and that's about how much we do meditation. So we're never going to make much progress. So let's just do it far more disciplined and far more seriously. You see what I'm saying, Sheila? You think it's not realistic to expect better? It's not realistic. It's not enough effort. There's nowhere near enough effort to put into it, I'd say. In other words, for you to go to the gym and lose 50 pounds and get incredible muscle tone, you know perfectly well that's not just 1 hour a day. That'd be several. You see what I'm trying to get at, the analogy, Sheila? Do you understand what I'm saying? So don't be disappointed because you haven't got concentration. Know that you're making effort every time you do it. You make an effort. You're learning about your mind and be content with that, I'd say. Do you understand, Sheila? And then the conditions. I mean, Venerable Renee was so qualified. And it's so interesting. I always remember this. He told me in the interview, I interviewed him at Courtin. If anybody's been to Courtin, you see how busy it is. You know, it's really a busy, busy place in Kathmandu Valley. So he did his first 2.5-year retreat in Spain, Ursaling, this beautiful center up in the mountains. His Holiness blessed in 1982 and named it Place of Clear Light. And His Holiness said it reminded of Tibet. It was beautiful. It was perfect for retreat up in the Sierra Nevada near Granada. And he was there for 2.5 years, Venerable Renee. And he said he knew he couldn't get past the fifth of the 9 stages of concentration. And then he realized at Courtin, when he was at Courtin, much more busy, his mind got more subtle more easily, because he said it was because it's blessed by holy beings. So even though it was more noisy, his mind got more subtle more easily because it's a place that's so blessed by holy beings. So there he was for 2.5 years. He couldn't get further. He knew he couldn't get further because the conditions weren't right as well. So to also know that, Sheila, to really get Singapore, even some semblance of concentration in a very busy, busy daily life is almost impossible because the conditions are so violent, you know. I mean, even then up in the mountains, subtle, quiet, peaceful, he couldn't, still the physical energies were so not subtle enough for him to get further. So can you imagine our ordinary daily New York life, Sheila, you know, and the busyness of our lives? It's impossible to even pretend to get concentration. But if you're a bodhisattvas can, but you know, when most of us not advanced. But making the effort, nothing wrong. What else, people? Any other questions? Got a few minutes to go. It's a good conversation. It's okay, very useful. Anyway, I'm sitting here in, where am I? I'm in Florence. A bit chilly here, a bit cold, winter already. Tomorrow I go to Napoli, down in the south. I'll spend 4 days in Napoli. Then I go to London for 2 days, and then I go to Courtin for a week. And then I go to Melbourne, see my family, and I'll teach in Sydney. I'll go to the Blue Mountains in New South Wales. I'll go to Long Bay Jail, see some people there in Sydney. Then I'll go to Brisbane to Chen Raising Institute. And then I'll fly to Auckland, and then I'll fly to New York from Auckland. I'll be back like probably after my birthday. I'm not sure. 20th of December, my 80th birthday. I'm not sure where I'll be for that, but I'll probably be back in New York around mid-December, late December. Okay. So I think it's enough. All right, you people. See you all. Happy to see you all. Good. I've been seeing Alona. She's been floating around in Europe. There's Tara. I haven't seen Tara lately. Hello, Daniela. Happy to see you, sweetheart. And everybody else. Kim, happy to see you. Beth, Kathleen, Francesco, Dawn, Good, Paola, all of you, okay? And Eileen and Sunny. So thank you, everybody. We'll see you all again. When's my next schedule? When's our next schedule?
you.
Pete? When's our next scheduled meeting?
Let's see.
Sunny?
Yeah.
When's our next meeting, Sunny?
December let me see, December.
December 2nd, Monday.
Okay, good. I'll see you then.
Yeah.
Good. I'll be, I don't know where will I be? Let me have a look. December 2nd. I'll be in Kathmandu. Okay, I'll be in Kathmandu.
Well.
Who knows what time it'll be there? 10 in the morning, is it?
10 in the morning here.
10 in the
Yeah.
morning again? So let me have a look at the calendar. I know what time it should be then. 10 in the morning. Well, Kathmandu now is 9. Is like pretend it's 9. What time are we now in New York? It's 11 a.m. Wow. 10. That'll be the timing is. We might have to change it because that I'll be. It's basically Kathmandu is like nearly 12 hours ahead. So we do it 10 a.m. your time. That's 10 p.m. my time. It's too late. So maybe we've got to make it a bit earlier. Otherwise, it's yeah, it'll be 10 p.m. for me, a bit late. So we might have to make it 9 a.m. on Monday.
Want to do 9?
We'll just see, I'll check when I get to. Yeah, I've got no scheduling. I don't think I've got a schedule in Courtin. I won't be teaching or anything. So otherwise, it's because it's 12 hours. So it's difficult. It's either morning or night for either one of us. So maybe we should make it 9 a.m.
Okay.
9
You want to
a.m.
confirm that?
Yeah, 9 a.m. December 2, Monday. Okay. Okay,
Okay.
darlings. Then thank you, John Trump Semjog, Rinpoche, Make Panam, Keguchi, Kevanyampa, Mepayang, Gongne, Gondu, Pabashog. Thank you. Oh, and I cut my finger and I fell yesterday and hurt my joints. I fell in the kitchen.
Oh
I
no.
fell into the kitchen, such a violent fall, you can't imagine. I ripped out, somehow I ripped from its hinges a fridge door in my fall. I smashed into the table, bumped into my knees, hurt my joints, and then later I was cutting the carrots and I sliced my finger. So I've had a good day of purification. But I'm all right. I'm fine. I'm still alive. My knees are in still good condition. My bones are luckily the bones of a 40-year-old. Otherwise, I'd be in trouble. Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
I feel
See you.
Take
better.
care. Okay, be careful.
Be careful.